Cool. Welcome to the Virtual Brown Bag. This is our weekly, just general developer meetup. It's meant to share things that we are working on and like to share with others. Um, the way that this works, there's two links. If you go to meetup.virtualbrownbag.com, they'll throw you into a viewer link. If you would like to participate, go to virtualbrownbag.com, join our Slack. There is a link in there to participate. We certainly prefer that people participate. Um, in addition to that, if you are going to show something, just remember that we do automatically broadcast everything to YouTube, so don't show anything that'll get you in trouble with an employer or so on. That's it. What's up, guys?
Hey, I'm closing down screens because I was working on employer stuff. So if I need to share, like I'm ready to do that. Yeah, this is good stuff.
Hey, what's up?
I'm talking to you guys on my new MacBook Pro.
Oh man, you tell if
Yeah.
Richie One doesn't know, tell him how you got it.
Did I tell you how I got this, JB?
No,
So,
did you steal it?
kind of. No. So,
We lose George. We lost him.
Yeah.
His new MacBook Pro equals can't do Google Hangout.
okay. I also don't know how to work my MacBook Pro, and I just put it to sleep.
Yeah.
No, what happened was so at Surge we have a weekly drawing basically for I'm sorry, not weekly, a quarterly drawing for people who have like worked a certain amount of hours that because we're all consulting to get like a trip to on like a vacation, and our CEO's like really into it. And, like it's pretty awesome. Like they put a lot of money into these. Like the first one was to Hawaii, then this last time was to Cancun. It's like 6 people, all inclusive, super cool. Um, and he jumps in the call. And he has like this big rolly machine to where he picks numbers out of. He picks and he reads my name, and then like has to come back like 10 seconds later and be like, nope, nope, no, 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 George did not win. I read the wrong name. So then he felt really bad and sent me a MacBook.
All right. Well, no vacation, but a new MacBook. Hey, MacBooks last longer than vacations.
I'll,
So,
I'll take it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Um, so yeah, so I've got that, and I mean, it's gorgeous. That's definitely true. There is definitely bits of it that I am not in love with. Like, I mean, overall, it's weird because overall UX, like on Windows, Ubuntu doesn't hold a candle to the UX on OS X. But at the same time, there's stuff that I'm finding that I just like cannot believe that it doesn't have, like the ability to adjust the typing touch, like how the touchpad should deactivate while you type, and how long that's debounced for. There's no slider to adjust that. There's no setting at all. There used to be, but there isn't anymore.
Huh.
So I'm constantly hitting the touchpad. I've asked like other people with MacBooks, and they're like, "Yeah, yeah, I just don't use the keyboard." Like, what?
Yeah, I don't use the keyboard. Well, I use it on a laptop, I do, but I guess I don't hit it, so.
That is insane. That is insane. People are not riding the streets. Like, what a dumb oversight. And I mean, like, there's stuff like I'm still trying to figure out like a really good environment that I could run Windows in, because so far VirtualBox I tried that, it worked fine, but kept crashing. So I'm in a VMware trial right now, which is like Unity just doesn't work very well. It just doesn't. So I'm going through all that and trying to figure it out. But other than that, it's very pretty for what it's worth. I like sliding things around. Um, I do like it. It is pleasant to be able to like npm install stuff and like root and gem install stuff,
Oh
and
yeah.
not have like and not have to spend like 3 days maybe resolving a no GIF issue. Although you still have no GIF issues, you just have the same ones that the people that created the package probably did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's nice.
I guess that's nice. Yeah.
I mean, I don't agree with it, but that's nice. I don't agree with the Apple philosophy there, but whatever. It is pleasant. Yeah. And I'm 100% sold on the 4K screens now. This is awesome.
I still can't tell the difference.
Are you kidding me? Oh man.
I can't tell the difference.
Yeah,
And
like.
Maybe I guess maybe it's too discerning, but like I open up my Retina and I can't. It looks the same to me. Maybe if I had like 2 monitors, like because also I do most of my time I work on a desktop, and so we'll see. Like, I'm going to be building a new PC next couple months, and then I'm not going to get a 4K monitor at first, but I might be. But I've been debating whether to get the 4K monitor or get one with a faster refresh rate, because people say the ones with a faster refresh rate, you definitely notice a difference too. So I don't know.
I'll say, yeah, like I had a nice screen on my previous laptop, like IPS and everything, but going to 4K, like just everything just looks so much better.
Oh yeah, well text is awesome.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with that part of it.
I can zoom out.
Yeah, exactly. So, what's been going on with everyone? Does anyone have anything they want to share?
I haven't done. So I've been obviously working on these Angular 1 projects. Both of them use Gulp. Do you know anybody who uses Angular 1 and uses Webpack with it? Just curious.
No, not up. Well, I'm sure I do, but
okay.
Just Angular is so poorly built for
You really don't need the modules stuff. That's why it's just kind of weird. This one actually using Browserify with it, and it feels kind of weird because you're like, I don't really need to import things, right? Like
you don't. Well, yeah, because it has its own dependency injection system, but its dependency injection system doesn't actually do what dependency injection systems are supposed to do. So I do not care for its dependency injection system. Oh my God, there's a code school down here, as you know. I had to teach them recently. So they have town hall sessions, which is basically they have a professional developer come in and kind of talk on a subject. So I had one on, I think not this Monday or sometime last week, where they were starting on their Angular section and I was supposed to come in and talk Angular concepts. And I just felt so bad explaining that stuff to them. They're like,
why did they pick you for Angular topics?
No, but it doesn't matter. No, because I give a freaking good explanation of it. But like halfway through it, like they're like there were 2 people that were kind of with me till the end.
Right.
Because I mean, well, you have to explain modules. You have to explain, that actually the module dependencies matter, but don't really matter because the script or loading order matters, because otherwise you're clearing out your modules. Then you have to explain scope, and you have to explain how scope works and how the message adjusting works, and directives, and what a component is as opposed to a directive, and how all that stuff. It's so. And like they're just sitting there like, what? And then you're like, okay, look, this is easier. Let's just download one of the example applications from Angular's website, and I'll explain the flow as you go through. And you go through it, and like, of course, in their sample apps, they just use all the magic demoware stuff that they have built into the framework. It's like, look, there's no code at all. It's like, yeah, okay, you can pipe everything to filter, but in reality, you're going to filter via your own function. Okay, let me show you how that would work. Oh, dear God. We're so deep into this, I'm trying to explain it.
Oh, God.
On the flip side, though, you have, I would say, React and Redux, where you would have, like, it's even more complex. I mean...
Well, but there's fewer concepts, and the fewer contradictions. There's way... See, the thing with Angular is I have to say this too much. Well, you could do it this way or this way or this way, and there's no clear guidance on when you should do one or the other. Like, you have to say that constantly when explaining Angular.
Weird. I hear that it's more opinionated. right? Like a
Well,
lot of
because
people
there's more
talk
opinions
about-
you can have.
Is that what it
JavaScript.
means?
It's
Is that
more
what
opinions.
opinionated means? That-
No, yeah, it's not opinionated in the way that it's prescriptive about how you should do any particular thing. It just has prescriptions on everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So like you want routing, it has a way to do query, client-side routing. You want to communicate with the server? Sure, you could. You know how to use jQuery stuff, but
Wow.
you shouldn't. Oh, okay. Well, and then there's the whole dollar resource nonsense inside of Angular, which is basically they were like, well, a lot of the times people are just doing CRUD, create, read, update, delete. So they wrote like this really weird wrapper around those operations that kind of exposes the sets in like a backbone style way almost, which is cool and all, but they use it in all of their demoware. And it's massively complex when you try to explain to someone what it's doing or how it works or why. Because, I mean, in all their demoware, they use just one operation. For one operation, it's way easier to just use HTTP. And then someone asks, well, why can't I just use jQueries.get? Like, you can't because they have their message digest cycle. And
Well, you can't use
jQuery.
scope.apply or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. And it's a great point of time to explain that sort of situation, but it's rough. Like that's like I got like 45 minutes in, and I was just like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Would you say, because I've been thinking about applying for jobs, like well, I probably shouldn't see. My door's
You're thinking about
My
looking
door-
at stuff.
My
that
door's
may be
closed. And there's a lot of Angular. There's still a lot of Angular 1 like legacy stuff out there.
Yeah. Hey, I'm working on two right
And
now.
it's like, do you, as someone who's never used Angular and has most of my exposure to it, I'd say, is you talking smack about it. Would you say that if you were looking at places and one of the things was in their stack they were really married to Angular as a technology, would you say stay away that kind of thing is just going to be unpleasant to use? Or
It is going to be unpleasant to use.
Is there a beauty behind it once you discover and unwrap it that gives it, I think, longevity, and that React isn't just going to eat its lunch? React and the React ecosystem.
That's an interesting question. My view on it is they threw a lot of stuff at the wall, and if you pick the right stuff, it's fine. It's actually a very similar situation than jQuery. Like, it's obviously to JavaScript. Avoid the bad parts, and it's actually not bad. But you have to spend a while figuring out what the bad parts are, because there's not really a ton of guidance about that. And I mean, in your case, you know JavaScript pretty well. You have a good sense of the stuff, so you'll be able to sniff it out pretty well. Then you're coming into a new company, and to what degree do they agree with your sense on the matter, and to what degree are they willing to change or get convinced or be able to convince you? So Angular is not an unending nightmare for everyone. It's especially for beginners that I pity them a lot. If you have the wherewithal to, to cut through it enough to understand the core of it and actually use the core stuff, it's not that bad. Until it is, and then then you end up ranting for a while.
That's a ringing endorsement.
How about give my take on some of this pro to balance out? Like this is like a CNN, Fox News thing. George, bounce out. Counterpoint. What George says is actually very true. That there's good parts and bad parts, and knowing how to get access to them. I would say the difference, really, take a look at it, is React and some of the others. So Ember is extremely opinionated, and is such that even more so than I feel than Rails, but it's close with the same thing where it's like, look, do it this way, and life is good. and everything's fine. But if you want to deviate, it sucks and it's hard and it gets ugly fast and you get off a lot of like, hey, why are you even doing it? And you're like, for real, I want to do it this way. But React, it's I would say it's slower development because there's a lot of pieces you have to move and go do different things. Just for example, let's just say consider forms. Like if you like a huge form in React, it's gonna suck. Like there's things that you like Redux forms and some other stuff.
Passing data back between
Right. Passing data between the two, editing the text field. Even if it was Redux forms, they sort of alleviate the pain. But there's gonna be some pain. Imagine if your app has a lot of like CRUD-based stuff or whatever. It's there's a lot of overhead associated with that. But it's easy to test. It's set up a good way, and there's sort of a pattern of this is how you do it.
Is
Angular,
there though?
I haven't found it very easy to test at all. Or maybe my standards are really...
Test Ember and then come back to me. Of course, the Ember guys, it's easy to test. I'm like,
Well, if they say Angular, that's the thing, right? Is dependency injection makes it so you can mock stuff, and I guess that would be one of the pros.
I've been testing this this one of the projects, and I have to say, once you get it set up and it's going, it is pretty easy to test and easy to mock and stuff.
Yeah, but you know how to think test first. You
Yeah.
know how to think in terms of modularization and dependency. Like Angular is not going to lead you to that at all.
No.
Like it is the thing that is nice. The dependency injection is going to make it nice to stub because like okay, you're taking a $HTTP dependency, so you can stub it out, and that is nice. But that's almost like an infrastructure thing. If you're not writing your stuff with a critical eye for making a testing mode, it's still going to be hard.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely nothing intrinsic about Angular that makes it easier to test.
Yeah, and then when you're saying that like as long as you stay to the Rails, yes, but which Rails? There's so many Rails. Because you like putting stuff on scope, but
No. I
documentation.
was for Ember. For Angular, it's different. Angular, I would say the power of Angular really is like you can get a lot done really fast, and if you know what you're doing, it's really powerful. And I think a lot of times the people run into problems is that they start just rocking out with one developer doing it, then you throw another developer, then a third developer, then a fourth developer. Next thing you know, you have a team of 4 or 5 developers, all with different opinions of how to do Angular, and it's a big colossal spaghetti code mess because everyone did it differently. And that is what that to me is the Angular story, which is. But if you're just one developer and you're hacking the stuff together, and it will need to go fast or whatever, Angular is awesome. Versus like being 1 or 2 developers on a team working with some of the other frameworks, it's painfully slow.
The other thing that I found that's a problem with Angular sometimes is that it'll sometimes like completely invalidate your core HTML and like CSS knowledge. Like working with actually I had this happen recently. I was like working with forms, and like just this input was not working the way I wanted to, and I realized the reason why was because Angular was seeing that had a type number on there, and then was like truncating data that was being put into it. And I was like, that's not a thing that's not a feature of HTML, but Angular's doing it.
I didn't have that issue, but
I've had stuff like that come up. I'm just like, just head on, spend 2 hours tracking it down, you figure it out, you're like, just head bang on keyboard. This is annoying. Yeah. Hey, Mark.
Hey, what's up?
What's up? Yeah, so I don't think I prefer to versus Angular 2. Or I like Angular 1, just cranking the stuff through and form my own opinions and how to get stuff. But then I like that. I like having my own opinions and be able to build it out a certain way. But I can see where it's a problem in a bigger team. I don't think the solution is Angular 2.
It's funny, I'm on an Angular 1 project now.
You liking it? It's awesome, right?
I'm not doing it. The mobile web guy in my group is doing it. I'm trying to get it to. We're basically placing it in a web view inside an app. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyone else have anything they want to bring up?
Do you find it fun? I mean, I think React is fun, right? I mean, in the way that you can break things down into pieces that sort of are something you can comprehend. Like there's a kind of a flow to it. I was doing Drupal development. Drupal is a horrible, or okay, it's a good CMS, but like it's one of those things where actually the more you actually learn about the system, actually the less you appreciate it. You're like, oh, so this is a totally arbitrary piece of bad UI. Like it's not like piano where as you invest time in it, you develop a deeper appreciation for the system as a whole.
I don't find it nearly as enjoyable as React, but making directives are fun. So
I think it depends on your approaches. So yeah, React breaking it down into components is fun. So the view side, a little bit Angular, the speed and the reducing of the burden of just being able to look, I'm just gonna make a HTTP request here, like basically the whole yes, I could make it a service, yes, I could do this and go all this stuff like that, or I could just inject the HTTP thing and make a call real quick right here. And it's sort of that freedom of who's gonna stop me? No one's gonna stop me. I can do whatever I want. Versus okay, say you're like, I just want to get a list of things from Redux or whatever. Let's just look at that. Say you're making a request and returning a list of items. You're gonna have to make an action, and that's probably gonna be a constant. Then you have to make a reducer, and that's going to call it to an API point, and you have to return that back, and then you have to set up a component for the parent collection and a component for each of the little children, and where you're going to show. It's so there's all these steps versus Angular be like, look, I have ng repeat, make the request, and I stick it on scope, and Bob's your uncle, and compare. Nice. That's the difference. And but longevity and so forth I think there's just different styles. I think they both are legit. I think the same thing is there's some people who are it's not a JavaScript framework war in some senses because they just solve different problems. They have different approaches. The thing I like about React is it encourages you to make smaller components, which I think is a good thing.
Have anyone tried Aurelia yet? We have a mutual friend who's really big on that.
It looked good when it was Jed that came and talked with us.
Yeah, Jed.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I think I think Sean Wildermuth had the best response for that with the idea that look crap, I forgot his name now. The guy who makes Aurelia.
Rob Eisen?
Rob Eisner, yeah. He's what he does is he makes frameworks, and every couple of years he makes a new framework. So his hesitation makes perfect sense. Is why build it in a framework made by someone who's 5 years from now is probably going to start a new framework? It's this is what he does. And I was that's a very good point. The dude keeps on making new frameworks and moves around. Why invest in the time and energy? That's why I don't do with the Google is my thing. It's why I don't want to invest time and energy with them is after they dropped Angular 1, I was why? Didn't make no sense. Okay, I'm going to do something else. But any reason why you could invest in so far, Facebook has been a good steward, if you will. We'll see how that goes. But Ember, to me, that's one of the positives. If you really like the way they do it, is that they're not going anywhere. They have they've been constant throughout these many years, and there's always been an upgrade path, and the upgrade path has always been very broadcast and understood, and they now actually have long-term stability builds, and so that is the reason that if you really like their structure and the way they do stuff, I think they're a good investment.
That's awesome.
That's why I really wanted to like them more. But me and Ember just don't get along. Don't have me chatting the entire time, George. I know you have opinions, dude. Where's George? George disappeared. That's what the problem is. I was man, it's been really quiet. George hasn't said anything. Oh, there we go. He's dropped off for 10 minutes. Okay, well there. So Mark, what's up, dude? We haven't chatted in a long time.
Not much. Hey, check this out. This is what I won. Let's see if I can at a gaming convention.
Dude, yes.
The original iMac.
Yeah, I had a friend who like gutted one back in the day and like put a big powerful gaming PC inside the old iMac container.
Yeah, I was thinking about what I can do with it. So it was a Quake 2 tournament at Classic Games Fest in Austin, and
Oh wow.
I won the final match. So
Really?
yeah, so it's kind of cool. Everything was played on IMAX. It was from a museum, like a computer museum, and they bring all the refurbished IMAX, and they have like Quake, Quake 2, Duke Nukem 3D, and there's tournaments for each one, and the winner gets one of these. So I got it. Everything works. They even were nice enough to preload it with a bunch of games. So the cool thing is that it came with. They also preload it with some student software. So it's got like learn to program in BASIC on it. So I told my daughter I was going to start her on that this week. The 3 weeks leading up to school, I wanted her to do some basic programming on this, so she can kind of advance from this is what it used to be to what it is now. So
Is she gonna take programming like at school?
no, she's not, and that's the thing. I'm going to start her on this machine and get her used to it, and then I was eventually going to have her start helping me with programming, like on a Mac and stuff. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. I need to upgrade the RAM and stuff. I might change out the hard drive, but it works surprisingly well. So.
I saw you playing some Quake the other day.
Yeah, it got me addicted again.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I need to play this.
I tried to play that game so much, but the internet, like it was right at the cusp. I was playing on an AOL dial-up connection.
Yeah.
And it was just brutal. It was brutal because they didn't have any like latency compensation. So you were like playing like Quake 2 Deathmatch 1, The Edge. I just remember those rockets. Like you'd shoot, and then about 3 seconds later, you'd see a rocket come out.
Yeah. No, it's man, like Quake 2. If you get the Steam, Quake 2 and Quake 1, all of them, it's like perfect to play now. Like but so there's a whole dedicated group of people that are still on Quake 2, and there's a Quake 2 servers.net or .com that lists all the running servers, and there's always a game going. Like you can always join a game and play, and that's what I do that a couple times a year. I get back on it and play a little bit, but yeah, it's still going. And what I was surprised, if you get Quake 1 on Steam, like they've really updated it to. There's an OpenGL version. It just looks amazing.
Oh.
So yeah.
I don't think I've played 2. Maybe I might. I know. I did
Quake 2 is
1.
the best. I think it's one of the best. I think it's the best FPS ever made. Like it took everything that needed to be added.
Well, obviously, you're pretty good at it.
Yeah. There's people even crazier than I am, though. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. So it works, and it doesn't take up all that much desk space, but I'm trying to figure out where best to put it. But, yeah, it comes with this student true basic, and it's like animate a sprite on the screen and stuff like that. So
That's the good stuff. I want to get, I guess, I've been debating I've been working on some game ideas, and one of them I've been thinking about doing is having an Elixir backend for it, because I want to have multiplayer, and I thought it'd be good to learn OTP.
Make you really smart by the end of this project.
Yeah, at the end, I was like, at the very end, I'd be way more knowledgeable about OTP and having different servers and apps running. So I'm kind of thinking I'm going to do that, but work's got to settle down so I can invest time in the hobby. But yeah, that's the idea.
You showed us an Elixir project you were working on a few weeks ago. How's that going? It was Elixir had been a scrape. You were using it as an HTTP scraper.
Oh yeah. I'm still working on that. In fact, as we're chatting, that's what I'm doing some tests. So this site is for my WoW guild. The expansion's about to come up, and so we're creating a new site. Me create a new site for us because our form is crap. And so we process DPS data, combat logs, and then keep track of DKP, which is like the points you get for rating, and then have a forum. We have a Slack channel now, and we're gonna try out Discord. Have y'all ever used Discord before?
No.
Yeah, I've never heard. It's like more of a gaming type thing.
I logged into it before, but I haven't had like a ton of reason to do anything on there.
Yeah, so I guess we'll try that too and see. We already have a TeamSpeak server, and they have an API, but I tried using a Node API library for it, and it didn't really work that great. So we'll have to see if Discord is a little better or something, because it'd be cool to have that integrated.
Hold on, is Ed in a car? Hey, Ed. Is he gone?
Who?
Ed just joined, and he is like clearly in a car driving. Then he left. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. I still love Elixir, and I still code. Obviously, it's my own favorite languages. And so I do that for my side project, and Phoenix has been great. But it's one of those where I love getting more and more into the language itself. I just think it's I don't know, fascinating. Versus JavaScript, I just never get into JavaScript as a language. Even though I've had a couple projects reviewed now by like some JavaScript people just a few back, and they say that they like my ES6 usage, and I don't think it's particularly good because George always finds something wrong with it.
But I like getting into JavaScript, but I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah, like I like getting stuff done with it, but it's after I get something working and it's tested, I don't have that itch to make it clean and better, really. You know, like it's just like, it's okay. Versus Elixir, I sort of always want to be like, ooh, maybe there's a way to make this more succinct or use this neat feature. And I think it's just people have different languages that just attract them to it. Like that's why the people who really love JavaScript, to them, Node and everything, they're like, why would I go pick another language? I was like, I can appreciate that if you really like it.
Because it'll go away. JavaScript will go away in the next 10 years. Well, it'll mostly go away.
Dude. After the nuclear winter, there's going to be cockroaches in JavaScript.
It will be JavaScript, but it will not be the nice jobs. It's going to go away.
To what? What's going to replace JavaScript, dude?
Everything. Every year.
Everything's going to replace JavaScript.
No, you'll be able to code in anything else. Actually, this kind of...
Yeah, segues. What's your stuff?
This segues into something I want to talk about. So this Saturday, I'm going to be speaking at a conference in Baton Rouge on the history of the web. And I kind of have talked about this already, but I've been kind of revamping it for a more hardcore conference, and just spent all this weekend reading so much stuff about like the history of the web and going back and reading the old WW Talk archives and stuff like that. And actually now I kind of want to write an app idea. I'm just going to throw it out there. Probably not actually going to start it ever. But download the WW Talk archives. Just first of all, make them easier to search because they're really annoying to index and catalog them. But set up a service where people can sign up and they could receive WW Talk emails in real time as if they were involved in those conversations. So, like, actually see the web evolve via their email box in the actual time that it was taken. Because, I mean, like, the messages themselves, like, sometimes they'll be, like, 15 a day, but it's mostly pretty reasonable, at least until the mid-late 90s. And I think that would be a really, really neat idea. But also not going to do that anytime soon. So, the thing that I did want to talk about, so this has kind of led me to, I'm planning on ending my talk by making some predictions, and kind of led me to put some predictions forward. So, number one, like I've said, I do think JavaScript, we're past peak JavaScript. WebAssembly is going to make it possible to put a whole runtime and a non-JavaScript programming language. I don't see the reason why we wouldn't be writing in other languages.
Okay, so explain WebAssembly, because you have to remember, like, again, I'm not plugged in. You are say way up to date. I'm busy like cranking code. So
Okay.
what is
Okay.
WebAssembly for people like me?
Okay. Sure. So just a little bit of a historical context for this. It starts with ASM.js.
Okay.
ASM.js is this is a what it really it's a style of writing JavaScript. It's a style where, but it's a very specifically dictated style where you are like using array lists and basically treating it as a very simple stack-based language. Actually, not even stack-based language, a pointer-based language, but you're treating it like C, but instead of working directly with memory, you're working with array buffers, and you write it in a very specific style. So the basic idea is, if you were to write it that way, then there's not really any compilation that needs to happen from that to C. It's just a literal translation of the things you wrote to the equivalent C and even assembly level. Um, the next step is kind of saying yes, and you're not actually supposed to write ASM.js. You are supposed to take either JavaScript or some other language and pass it through a compiler which will spit out ASM.js. So now, because it's still JavaScript and still doing all the JavaScript things, it still runs in a regular JavaScript interpreter, but because it's a subset, a very, very simple subset, it is in theory translatable into a much, much faster, lower level format. And there are tools that do this already. There's a tool called mscripten where you can pass in anything that compiles to LLVM code, and it'll spit out something that runs in JavaScript. A lot of it is not that bad speed-wise, even. You could play Quake in your browser, and it's created by taking the Quake source code, passing it through mscripten, taking the generated code, loading up in the browser, and most browsers don't have ASM.js optimizations yet. So the big issue that leaves on the table is it's a hugely verbose file. Just like the actual text that you're sending is very, very verbose, because just to change a memory location of something, you have to write all the same stuff that you would write in C, but then also with weird JavaScript syntax. So the general idea is that browsers will enable ASM.js optimizations over the course of the next year or two, and then starting soon, basically ASM, the JavaScript version of ASM, they will add a new, basically not compiler, interpreter to JavaScript engines, which will be able to take that same ASM.js file, but in a binary format. And at that point, the file is no longer huge. It's very, very simple. It's very straightforward. And in essence, you're sending over IL over the line then, and it runs. With all the JavaScript safety, it's still doing all that stuff. But it runs. And WebAssembly is a thing that was proposed by Brendan Eich. Mozilla is working on it. They already have some versions of it ready to go. Everyone is completely bought in on it. So the prediction is basically, once you have that, why on earth can't you take Ruby or Python or something like that? And yes, you'll have to compile the entire runtime. You'll probably want to make some sort of pared down version of the runtime, one that plays with the browsers, one that interacts with browsers particularly well. But just go ahead and part of your application, send that entire thing over. And of course, over time, browsers will start packaging certain runtimes inside of them, so the delivery will get even smaller and even smaller. And I really see no argument why this wouldn't happen sometime within the next 5 years. And I think we will see major sites doing this stuff in less than 5 years' time, probably 3 to 4 years at this point in time. Because it's there. The tech is not there isn't major things to figure out, and everyone seems completely on board with it. And that's been the biggest problem with the web evolving in the past. So does that make sense?
Yep, makes sense to me.
All right. So, questions
So
about that?
here's
Yeah.
repeating my understanding
Yeah.
of the stuff, and I could be totally off because I'm trying to figure out the basic idea that is if so you're cutting out JavaScript in terms of so JavaScript is getting put down into like some basically C type code that's in process, but if you can then handle that C, if that can be something else can compile that C based process into a binary that isn't implemented, then we can skip out JavaScript.
Yeah, for the most part.
But extremely high level. There's a lot more complexity involved with it.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, and if you look up what ASM.js here, actually, let me share my screen.
And I was looking at like some other stuff. Saw a Medium article. What is WebAssembly? Going through by Eric Elliott.
Yeah, here, like this is what ASM.js looks like, right here. See that? I mean, that's still JavaScript, but it's also like it's written in a C style, basically, or even it's really written in an IL style.
It's an intermediate state, right, between a machine code and JavaScript. It's not a JavaScript that you will ever write.
Yes.
It's
that
just
you could, but
super low level. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's like the pipeline as it exists right now. Anything that goes to LLVM code can be passed on a script in, which will spit out JavaScript code like this. But I mean, you can put this code through a regular JavaScript compiler, so it's not breaking the web. It's just the newer stuff is going to be slow on old browsers. It will start breaking the web once they start introducing an alternate non-text-based syntax for this. That will start breaking the web. But if but with all browsers auto-updating, this is something we could possibly do, and you could even, now you're back to maybe doing some browser sniffing and figuring out which version of a file to send. And that the benefits are so worth it.
What does that mean for like source maps? I'm just curious.
I'll figure something. I don't see why it would be a problem, because regular debuggers in compiled languages do that.
Yeah.
That still work. So just the source map file format will be different. DevTools will have to figure out how to work with it, but other than that.
So we'll just need a source map for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like in C#, for example, you send PDB files if you want stuff to be debuggable, and that kind of tells you exactly what's in the binary, and kind of how to structure it. Okay, so that's prediction number 1 that I'm going to put out there.
That's a pretty bold prediction, sir.
All right.
I like it, but you have validation, but it's definitely a bold one.
It's well, yeah. I'm not messing around with my predictions. I want to go bold.
You're messing around.
All right.
Go big or go home.
Prediction number 2. I think the next big thing in CSS is going to be AR and VR. No. Well, I think the next really big thing, like scoping CSS and all that, we'll see that. I think the next really big thing will be AR and VR stuff, augmented reality. Imagine being able to say background, to set your background to the current view from the front camera rotated by 30 degrees. Something like that.
I gotcha. I see.
That would be huge, because I mean, like stuff like, and I showed this a little before, stuff like A-Frame exists already, and it's super cool. And it's a markup way of writing AR apps, right? But styling them is still a pain in the ass. And I think CSS is not the best solution that was on the table. Actually, like every solution, single proposal other than CSS was better, in my opinion, like having read through them. There were 2 different ones that were a form of scheme, which is, by the way, something I realized. And I've seen happen this over and over and over again, that whenever anyone needs a new programming language, there's always like a scheme that gets introduced, and then everyone likes it, and then it gets rejected because it was too unfamiliar to people. But every single programming language, a scheme has been introduced. Like, it's so frustrating, because like, maybe we should just go with the scheme.
Hey, I gotta go. I'll see you guys next week.
Sure.
Yeah, It's good talking to you, Mark.
So, yeah, definitely. So I think that's prediction 2, and I think VR stuff like actual 3D positioning in CSS. That's not the gimpy stuff that we can do with transforms. Would be really really swell. Um, and then another bold prediction I'd say, probably a little bolder than the CSS one, is I think XHTML is going to make a comeback. I'm going to call it. I don't know how long it'll take, but the basic. So if you are kind of aware of the history of XHTML and what happened with that, I guess should I cover it real quick?
Yeah, do it.
Because it's pretty confusing what happened. So basically, HTML comes out. Tim Berners-Lee puts it out in like 91. Well, he met in 89, starts promoting it, puts it out kind of in 91, I believe. He starts the WW Talk mailing list. Now, in order to make it popular, he doesn't invent his own markup language. He bases it on something called SGML, which is where angle brackets come from, basically. So, interesting side note, in SGML, it doesn't actually have to be angle brackets. So in theory, for a long time, HTML could be written without angle brackets. You just have to include like a code to say, no, I'm using this as the delimiter.
I was about to say,
yeah.
I was bitching without delimiters, and I was like, oh,
no,
how the hell would that
delimiters,
even work?
just not angle bracket. Like if you're like, I want to use pipes or something, this is how it works. Pipes and stars. That's SGML does have actually a way of doing that. So, and like if you read through the WW Talk archive, that's what they're viewing it as. They're viewing it completely as a subset of SGML. They're talking about in SGML terms. The interesting thing there about where XML comes from, because XML is a separate subset of SGML, which is a simpler version of SGML, which like nobody even thinks about, because like XML is so complex, but no, XML is actually a nice simple subset that's actually pretty sweet. So you could see this going even back in their archives and see everyone being like, this is dumb. Everything that we're doing, it's just so hard to write parsers for this stuff. We need a like really standardized language, and the way that the language really evolves, they do talk about stuff and talk it through, and then eventually one of the browser vendors comes in and just says, this is the way I'm doing it. Usually it's Mark Andreessen, who's like, screw you guys, I agree with you in theory, but that's too hard for me to do. I'm just going to make the IMG tag. That's actually the perfect example of it, because like, if you like, he proposes the IMG tag in like 93 or something like that, and everyone's like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense. You should be able to embed anything, like, an image or another document or a audio file, and like they discuss it for days about like the specific syntax. He's like, yeah, great, okay, I've already done IMG. I'm letting it. By the way, I'm letting you know, not asking permission. It's like,
yeah.
And I mean that's how a lot of this stuff evolves. So and that's what the W3C is kind of founded in order to do. So one of the things they're trying to do. Basically, when HTML kind of stopped growing in the early 2000s, what happened was that they were on a kick of saying, all right, let's take HTML and really standardize it so it has to be XML. And once you have it XML, it's going to be simpler to parse, so anyone can write their own parser. It's going to be simpler to reason about, so that's great for accessibility. That's great for anything that's going to automatically read a page, so semantic web and all that. It's awesome. So let's do that. So they put out XHTML specs, and if anyone was doing web in like the early mid-2000s, you remember XHTML, where it's like, oh, okay, you have to write your web page a certain way. Always remember to use closing tags, run it through a validator, and to get really nice XHTML styling. So they put that out at one point. They put in XHTML 1 and 1.1, I think, in 2004 as kind of a stopgap. They're like, here's how you write current HTML, but with XHTML kind of syntax, with XML syntax, and it's mostly backwards compatible, so it's good. But then what happens is they start working on XHTML2. XHTML2 is supposed to be even nicer and even better, but is not really backwards compatible with the web. And it's like very, very academic. And it finally, so this happens in late 2004, all the browser vendors are like, what are we even doing here? We're never going to get to the point at this point where people are actually going to start to implement it. So they break off into from the W3C and make the WW working group that is chaired by Ian Hickson. And they're kind of structured a little different. They still discuss all the same stuff, but basically Hicksey's making the decision, and what he, and then they can talk about it afterwards. But what he says is what gets included. And they progress real quickly, and they start documenting what's actually done on the web, rather than so. In 2006, then Tim Berners-Lee kind of publishes a hands-throwing up blog post that says, guys, I realize that this XHTML stuff is just taking way too long. So what we're going to do is we're going to split the W3C into two groups. So now we're going to have, we're going to still keep going with XHTML2, but we will also have an HTML5 group that's going to standardize HTML5, and we're going to, it's HTML space 5, and we're going to base its work on the current spec that's put out by the by the working group, which is HTML5 no space. So it's this weird situation. And then, like 2 years later, XHTML2 still doesn't get anywhere. HTML5 is looking pretty awesome, and they just disband the group's charter entirely. So that's kind of where HTML comes from. That whole weird situation. XHTML is still a good idea. Here's where I see this coming up. Now that we're all we're not writing markup so much anymore. We're using frameworks that write our markup for us. We're using Virtual DOM. We're using web components, which in turn spit out markup. We're doing all these different things. Well, why can't those frameworks spit out XHTML, even XHTML2 or 3 or whatever the heck we want? So what I'm envisioning at some point in the future is that you will have you're still using React or whatever, some sort of thing that is capable of spitting out markup. You're writing it. Someone sends a request to your server saying, "Give me this page." I accept. So my for accepts header is XHTML3. Your framework will run on the server and spit out XHTML3 compatible code and pass it back, and then they can use like a custom written parser or whatever the heck they want in order to parse it and actually be able to work with it in a simplified manner. In the meantime, if someone doesn't send that header, you return the page in regular HTML5 format and spit it back the same way that we're doing now. And I haven't heard anything about XHTML3 being a thrust yet, but I think we're kind of getting to the point where we can start talking about it again at some point in the next few years. That's prediction number 3. And I think that's a big one because people hated XHTML so bad. And it wasn't fair. They just I think it got conflated with a lot of the SOAP stuff, and a lot of the XML stuff, which again, XML wasn't that bad to begin with.
Yeah, I'll say
it got weird to use. Yeah.
I have some weird XML data sources with this sports trade XML done with the data. And after using XML for a while, using XLST and getting better at it, there's a lot of value in it. It's actually pretty helpful. It's sort of like, I would say it's almost similar to like regular expressions. Like once you sort of dive into it and you sort of get familiar with even with the basics and you're comfortable with it, it's not bad. And like you can get some appreciation for like, I very succinctly I can get this data that I want out. It's just a little bit trial error and there's a little bit of a learning curve, but yeah. Yeah, to that one is like, okay, let's just take this big data blob and it's a big old JSON thing, and then you have to get some data out of the nth level root element that may or may not be there, and get back to me about how terrible XLST and XML is.
So the interesting thing about XML is it was meant to be a nice format for multimedia publishing. That's what it was meant for. Yeah. Mixed media publishing. Sorry. It wasn't meant for all this other stuff. It wasn't meant for data transfer of simple data, which JSON is perfectly fine with. None of the XML guys have any problem with that. But everyone started doing it, and that's where the issue is. The issue was, yeah, and actually, yeah, like XSLT. It's fun that you mentioned that. XSLT was actually written by the same group that wrote one of those alternatives to CSS I talked about called Diesel DSSL, D, 3 S's, and then L. That was a scheme. That was awesome. You could write functions in it. You have variables. You can make all sorts of decisions based on the tree and everything. But because it was a full programming language, you had to load the page entirely in order to apply it. And also, it was like, it was fairly complex, and all the browser vendors were like, nah. No way. Yeah.
Will it handle the situation where you're like, I want to style this child element based on data from my parent element? That sucks.
It does handle that. It's a full program. It's a full scheme. Very, very nice from what I saw. I liked it a lot, but it didn't get picked up. And then you look at it, but then they went on and make XSLT, which I don't love, but okay, I could see the use case, and I do use it occasionally. So, a quick side note, you know what the cascading in the CSS refers to? Because it's not what I thought it does.
Is it?
I thought this cascading was just because it's going down the tree, right? Does that mean something else?
It doesn't mean that. That's what I always assume too, right? It's like, yeah, like the background color or the color cascades down the DOM tree.
Right.
No, the thing that you're cascading is so the main selling point, the whole big thing that CSS was about initially, was that it was about combining the preferences for how things should, the user preferences for how it should display, and the document author preferences. And actually, every single one of the properties in the first few versions had like a percentage you could put on it, which would be like how much you want this property to apply versus the user's preferences. And like you could make like little sliders that would be like, it'll just be slided back and forth.
Yeah.
And so the thing that's cascading is the cascading refers to the cascading of the users and the document author's preferences, not the DOM tree. And yeah. And the really weird thing is that even though CSS won out in the end, it now does not, barely at all, resembles the initial thing that it was created for. This is all completely arbitrary.
Yeah. The early days, the idea that people have their own styles that they're going to be applying to all the different pages. Yeah, nowadays you're looking, you're like, what? That make any sense? Well, because back then it was they're supposed to be documents, and not these craziness that we have now of apps.
I'll actually give you an awesome quote that I found. This was from Håkon Lay, who's the guy that wrote the initial spec. He was writing in 1999. He goes, CSS Level 2 became a recommendation in May 1998, and Level 3 will probably follow toward the end of 1999. Do you know the actual timeline? Because CSS 2.1 came out in 2011.
CS3 was recently, yeah. So
yeah, CSS 3 isn't out yet fully.
Yeah.
So like
it's a little delayed.
1999, he's like, it'll be out by the end of the year. No big deal.
Yeah, a little delayed. No big deal. No big deal. I was thinking about the time frames. I can't remember. It was something, but I was like, I don't think we can fully appreciate how fast things have moved in terms of years and development of stuff. Like, because it was something, like, out of context, you have to remember they're talking about something and be like, oh, that happened, whatever, 25 years ago or 20 years ago. You'd be like, you do realize there was no iPhones. That's how fast this world has moved. Yeah. There were no iPhones here. And there was no, like, all these little things are like suddenly, oh, I know. It's I'm reading a book and I'm watching through X-Files again. And so I'm reading a book that's written in 98. And one of the villains he has an office in the World Trade Tower. And I was like, what year is this written? And then I was like, oh, wow. And like some of the stuff they're talking about, like some of the technologies, the cell phones and stuff like that, you're like, wait, oh, right. Yeah, like they don't even have like any of this stuff. Like the internet is not even really a thing. Like it's there, but
why can't they just use their cell phone to call someone?
Right? Yeah, like it was like there's like he goes to the nearest payphone and start calling and be like, payphone. Like, why is it a payphone? That doesn't make any sense. Like there's stuff like that. And watching old X-Files has been great too. I was like, man, this show, it's still awesome, but the tech and some of the stuff, you go back, you look, you're like, wow, we've come a long way. And I guess now it's this pretty old show, but the computers, cell phones, all that jazz. Like, so flip phones. People still have flip phones, I guess, but stuff like that. You're like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, smartphones everywhere. It really, in every year, the speed of which things have been improving has been pretty impressive.
Yeah. And yet you're doubting my prediction about JavaScript.
Well, JavaScript's still been around. I'm not saying that we're not going to be able to do it. I'm just saying that, dude, there's still jobs for COBOL out there. There's still jobs and stuff for COBOL.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty sure
JavaScript's
way more market share penetration than COBOL's ever had.
Well,
yeah.
JavaScript has all these DOM manipulation methods that help ecosystem. I mean, it's definitely going to take a really long time to replace it.
No, I mean the other languages that combine, they will have those same bindings.
But I mean, I'm sure that even if you ask Brendan Eich to say, hey, like if you were just imagine that JavaScript didn't exist, if you were going to create a new language for the web, it wouldn't be JavaScript, right? Like
no. I mean, he wasn't envisioning JavaScript to begin with. He was hired at Netscape initially to bring Scheme into the browser. Here we go, it's Scheme again. That's what he was hired to do. And then he was kind of, he was only given 10 days to write JavaScript. So and then there was a whole marketing layer. And actually, I find all sorts of quotes from him. Going back, they didn't intend for JavaScript to be the only language on the web. They intended for JavaScript to be a quick language that more novice developers could use, and then hardcore developers would be using Java on the web to build up components.
Right.
Of course, Netscape's deal with Java fell through.
Uh-huh.
That's what I think is interesting about the WebAssembly.
Yeah.
See if it goes. It's more not sort of the job's just gonna die or whatever. More, and I think you're just making extreme just to get this shock value. I think it's more the fact that it's like right now you'd say it has a de facto sort of monopoly on that area, right. And that monopoly would then disappear. And if that monopoly disappears, then naturally the dominance of it is going to go down over time.
Plus the fact that JavaScript isn't a language that you really love. I like it fine, but
I have plenty of people that love it. They love it.
Yeah, but they probably.
They love it.
We have to say we love it. That's the thing. No. We have to claim to love it. We don't actually love it. All right,
we're over time. Yeah, so it was a great conversation. Good stuff. Now we learned a bit of history of the web. Covered some of the interest of WebAssembly. We discussed Angular 1 and the pros and cons, and discussed some other frameworks. It was a good meeting. So we'll see y'all next week, and we'll see and talk some more about history of the web, and see some more about what's going on and what people are working on, and we'll see if we can pester Mark to share some more mobile stuff. Later.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.